Hey golfers, and welcome back to the Second Swing YouTube channel. Today we have some new putters to review, and we get the entire tech lowdown, and we have a special guest with us as well, so we're very excited about it. I'd like to introduce the viewers to Luke Williams. Luke is the Senior Director of Brand Management at Odyssey. And so today we've got the AI-One Cruiser Putters from Odyssey. So the Cruiser Putters are complete launch today, right? So they're in stock at Second Swing. You can get fit at Second Swing as well, and you can order on secondswing.com. So we're all very excited about that. And I also want to remind the viewers that are joining on YouTube also, provide your thoughts, questions in the chat. We're going to allocate some time towards the end to have a sort of a Q&A here with Luke as well. But Luke, want to get you going here. Thank you for joining. I know it's a busy day for you guys with the launch, so thank you for joining and spending some time with us.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so these Odyssey putter, like the Cruiser line it's so different, right? Because the traditional putter that you think of that a lot of viewers are joining to, or maybe they have in their bag, it's the standard length, 35, 34 inches maybe. But
Yep.
like this trend it's kind of different. So how are you seeing these things kind of be received, these different builds? How are you seeing them be received from the golfers so far?
Yeah, so this is really a trend that started on tour for us, and last year we started to see more and more players converting to these alternate style of putters. Through the years, there have been broomsticks and before the anchoring ban, there were belly putters. And then in response to the anchoring ban, we came out with our tank line, and that evolved into our tank cruiser line. And they were really popular for a while. And then sort of as trends changed and different products came in line, we saw fewer and fewer of those. But over the last couple years, last year in particular, we started to see more and more players using alternate styles of putters. So whether they be just the longer, what we would call a cruiser style, or an Armlock or a broomstick, we just started to see more and more players shifting to that. There are more instructors that are kind of promoting these different styles of putting for certain players. Last year, at the end of the year, 6 of the top 25 players in the world were using some type of alternative style of putter. So I think it's become more commonplace. It's not, it used to be that these putters were sort of for people that were maybe a little bit desperate or had the yips, or were really looking for a lot of help. And now I think there are just more and more players that see the benefits and are switching to these. And there's sort of less stigma, I guess, around them now.
Right. Yeah. That seems to kind of be it, right? It's more of it's an easier way to have a consistent putting stroke is sort of the, if you test them out and you're certainly a different feel, a more comfortable feel, at least in my experience. That's why I actually have one coming to my bag in 2024. So as we kind of get started here, can you just kind of run through the models that are in the Cruiser line from Odyssey, the different shapes, the different styles, so golfers know kind of what's out there for them to be looking at here?
Sure, yeah. So in kind of the standard Cruiser configuration, which is a 38-inch build with a longer 17-inch grip, that's the most popular kind of style for these types of putters. We have a double wide. We have a number 7, which has been our most popular shape. And then we have the Jailbird, which has really been kind of a big part of the whole revitalization, I would say, of these styles of putters, and has become kind of the hottest putter on tour over the last year or so. And then in the Armlock and broomstick style, we have number 7s in both of those. So the broomstick is a center shafted number 7. The Armlock is a single bend. But so we've got one model in each of those styles.
Nice. Yeah, that's a pretty full lineup, really, because it's just you have to have these different configurations, and then obviously trying to build the different available heads that you've already sort of designed before, right? The number 7 is a very popular one that's been with Odyssey for as long as I can remember. Has been a kind of a staple in most of the putter lineups, right? And then we talked a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about the Jailbird sort of revitalization here shortly. But I wanted to dive into the tech as well, because I know you guys did some work on the face insert as well. It's a little bit updated from the past. So what kind of goes into this AI-One insert here that golfers are gonna be able to experience if they get one of these putters?
Yeah, so we're using the same AI-One insert that we have in the rest of the line, the one with the white hot striking surface. This is the first insert that we've had where we used artificial intelligence to help us design the insert. So starting back in 2019, the putter team and R&D got together with our advanced research team and started to look at how we could use AI to design a better insert to make a better putter. And the objective that the team had was to make ball speed as consistent as possible across the face. So that's something that we look for in drivers and fairway woods and irons as well. But in those products, we're also looking for maximum distance. In this case, with a putter, we're not trying to maximize distance or speed.
Right.
Nobody brags about how far they hit their new putter. But what we want is consistency. So when you miss the center of the face with your putter, just like any other club in your bag, the speed starts to drop off. And the further you miss the center, the more the speed drops off. And everyone misses the center of the putter. You hear tour players even talk about it pretty regularly. And then as you get further from the hole, you tend to miss by a greater margin, right? You're making a larger stroke. It makes sense. It's a little harder to hit the center every time. So that's where the benefit really comes in, is on longer kind of lag putts where you might know, all golfers know when you get up and you hit a putt and right away, you think, oh, I hit that one off the toe or the heel, and it's going to come up shorter than you wanted it to. So that's where this technology and this insert can really help. It can help those off-center hits come off at the same sort of speed they would have if you had hit them in the center. So your distance control is a lot tighter. Your misses are a lot better. Right,
exactly. And then how about the Stroke Lab shafts that are, because there's a couple new ones, right? So, or I guess new design. So I guess, first of all, let's go back and talk about the Stroke Lab technology in general. I know that's something that Odyssey introduced probably, 4 or 5 years ago now? And what is the purpose of that? What is the function that golfers will get out of a Stroke Lab shaft? And then maybe kind of dive into the different options that are available with the Cruiser lineup.
Yeah, so the sort of the original concept behind the Stroke Lab shaft was to look at the shaft and the putter as a whole and try and make the whole system more stable. So the way we did that was by taking weight out of the shaft and then distributing some of that toward the head and some of that in a counterweight that goes in the butt end of the shaft. And that's been the philosophy behind Stroke Lab. The original ones had a composite section with a steel tip. This year in our AI-One and AI-One milled line, we've changed to what we're calling SL90 or Stroke Lab 90. It's a little bit heavier than where we were with the multi-material shaft, but still quite a bit lighter than a typical steel shaft. So it still allows us to get some of that counterbalance we put, depending on the grip, 20 or 30 grams up under the grip in the butt end of the shaft. It still allows us to add a little more weight to the head and just makes the whole sort of system more stable. With the Cruisers, they're heavier shafts. So we're not looking for a lightweight steel like we are in our traditional line. Part of the benefit and the appeal of these configurations is that they're heavier overall, more stable. For a lot of players, it kind of smooths out their stroke. It makes them more consistent. We see players have more consistent delivery of the face. Their face angle at impact tends to be more consistent. So with these, we're not trying to reduce weight. So the standard cruiser and the Armlock have 140 gram steel shaft, so a heavier steel. Part of that is because it's longer, but just even at the same length, it would be quite a bit heavier than our SL90 shaft. And then the broomstick gets the big ski pole shaft that weighs 200 grams, so quite a bit heavier.
Yeah, and I think, could you maybe like kind of go into this, like really what the benefit is of maybe having the heavier putter? I mean, I know that's kind of the basis of this trend is really trying to stabilize the putting stroke, and it seems like having heavier weighted shaft and club head is sort of one way to do that. And so could you just kind of explain maybe the sort of the science behind, you know, why a golfer with maybe that might be struggling with a standard length putter and with a standard quote unquote head weight might get some benefit out of a heavier setup?
Sure. Yeah. So the heavier head, along with a heavier shaft, longer length, longer grip, makes the whole putter more stable. So it increases the MOI of the entire putter. So the head has higher MOI because it's heavier. But the whole system, the whole putter also has just higher club MOI. It makes it more stable, more consistent for most players in their stroke. It takes out for some players that, you know, get their hands too involved in the stroke, or maybe get a little flinch, or have trouble just having a consistent, smooth stroke. It can really be, you know, a game changer for them. It just helps to smooth it out and make it easier to make a consistent stroke.
Yeah. I think there's, again, it's more of a feel thing for me personally, in that there's a certain confidence that you get with that heavier putting stroke, and you kind of just know as you move your shoulders, really rock your shoulders back and forth, it's so much harder to get the hands involved with it being a heavier setup. So and then even further on the weight stuff, I know there are also kind of interchangeable weight options with the cruiser lineup as well. And so could you kind of maybe sort of explain how, you know, the 5, 10, 15, 20 gram, you know, the differences between those weights, and if, you know, the impacts that a player will see by interchanging those weights?
Yeah. So when we work with our tour players, they obviously have, you know, great feel, and they get really dialed into a particular kind of weight balance point for a putter that they know allows them to release the putter the way they want and have the type of stroke that they're looking for. So we dial in head weights for tour players in order to meet, you know, their requirements. So we have these adjustable weights. We make them available. And it's really about, for some players can be really sensitive to head weight and adjustments made to head weight. Other players are less so, or have a harder time telling the difference. But a lot of it is feel. So how much, you know, if the head feels heavy to you, obviously going to lighter weights can help reduce that. If you want a little more head weight, you can add some weight. So part of it's just getting a feel that you're comfortable with. Some of it also, and if you're going through a fitting, you can see how it may affect the way you release the putter. So that can be important too. You want to make sure that you're releasing the putter the way you want, and sometimes adjusting the head weight can have an effect on that.
Yeah. It's so kind of interesting how these little tweaks, right, can make such a big impact, especially with putter. And you know, we got a couple of our favorite putter fitting experts here at Second Swing. Will always say, you know, the putter is 40% of your shots on average, right? And so that's probably the one club you want to get fit for the most over anything else. And so and that includes dialing in the option of, you know, interchangeable weights, and then obviously that's without saying, you know, length, loft, lie. And so obviously if golfers out there are interested in an AIOne Cruiser, we also recommend getting in to a fitting here at Second Swing and dialing those aspects of it in for you and your putting stroke. So all right, so let's kind of dive into a little bit more on this Jailbird craze. I know we hinted at it earlier in at the beginning of the stream. I know I have I am just fascinated by how this thing took off in 2023. So there was, you had a number of tour pros that started winning tournaments with the Jailbird design last year. Ricky Fowler, Wyndham Clark, Keegan Bradley, I think had a win in there. So what, like
3 weeks in a row they won.
3 weeks in a row with the same. I mean, that is it's very rare to even have that for a driver or a fairwaywood or anything like that, where there's maybe more releases year after year, right? But with putter, and especially with a model that was actually older initially. So how did what was that like for Odyssey to sort of see these things become popular, build these setups for golfers with a model, the Versaline that was so old? Like, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, so that's one of the things, the challenges with what we do, and we're trying to anticipate trends and and where we pay a lot of attention to the tour. It's very important to us. It sort of validates our product performance, but it also can help us anticipate where the market may go, because we know that putters, probably more than any club, can get a real boost from tour usage and success that players have. And so often you hear about players switching putters or struggling with their putting and making a switch and seeing the benefit of that. I think then people watching them start to think, oh, maybe that can help my game as well. So we saw early last year when Ricky put the Jailbird in play, that he had literally taken from his caddy. So his caddy was using that putter and they were playing, and he tried it and had sort of instant success with it. So then he put it in play and had a phenomenal year. Got a win, got kind of resurrected his career, not just because of his putting, but in large part because of his putting. And then that led to other players asking for them right away. Tour players are just like the rest of us golfers, probably even more so, that if they see someone else have success with something, they get really interested, right? So if you're playing with your buddy on the weekend and he gets a new driver and all of a sudden he's 10 yards longer than you, when before he was 5 yards shorter than you off the tee, you get really interested in what driver he's hitting, because you figure it can't be him, it must be the club.
Right.
Or same with putting, right? You get someone who's not a very good putter and all of a sudden they get a new putter and they're making everything. You think, whoa, what's that? Tour players are exactly the same way. So when they see someone having success with a particular product, then they get very intrigued. So we started getting lots of requests for putters to be built, like the one that Ricky had. We had to go make a new tool because we had a limited number of those heads left, and that product had been out of line long enough that we had scrapped the tool. So we had to go make a new tool. Oh, wow. Originally, we were doing it just to make some more parts for tour. But then as the request kept coming in on tour and we started getting some demand from the marketplace, we did our limited drop last year. We actually ended up doing 2 of the Jailbird 380. And then meanwhile, we were working on this line and bringing it into the AI-One line. So it's amazing sometimes how that goes, or how, what's old can be new again. And now we have it with our new insert and our latest and greatest technology. So happy to have it now in line and available to everyone.
Yeah, it's also, so I have to ask too about like the visuals of the Jailbird, right? Because I feel like that's probably part of what maybe first intrigued some of these guys, is the visual cues, looking down at the dress, that kind of that striped, the Versa sort of design to it.
Yeah.
I imagine, if golfers are able to look at that sometime, maybe go to a second swing store or go to a shop and see what it looks like. To me, looking down at it, it's so easy to also align yourself. Like that's another piece of this technology that we haven't even really discussed is sort of the visual cues of alignment with those stripes. I imagine that was a big part for those players getting this putter in the bag as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that was the original concept behind Jailbird when we first released it. For many golfers, having lines that run perpendicular to your intended target line or line of your putt is the easiest way for them to see the line. Some players like things that run sort of in line with your intended line of your putt. Others see the line much better with perpendicular lines. So for a lot of golfers, that type of alignment is really beneficial, and the Jailbird really lends itself to that, just its design, and it's kind of big and bold, and for many players it's really easy. Other players, the 2-ball might be the easiest thing to align, or a number 7, that style. But for many players, this 90-degree sort of Versa alignment is the easiest for them to line up. And obviously alignment is critical in putting. So if you need to be able to read the greens, you need to be able to start the ball on the line you intend to start it on, which means you have to be aimed where you think you're aimed, and then it comes down to speed. So alignment is obviously, it's one of the key fundamentals to good putting for sure.
Yeah, I just love the stark contrast of sort of the dark to the white on those stripes, and I think obviously a lot of golfers are loving that as well, and you're seeing the putting improvement there. So let's go back kind of into, again, we mentioned at the beginning, but sort of the 3 build possibilities with the AIOne Cruiser setup. We talked a lot about the Cruiser setup, right? Kind of a little bit longer. With that longer grip, 17-inch grip, and kind of over, maybe talking about 36, 37, 38 inches long. How about Armlock? Because that's one that's kind of been somewhat popular the last few years, and golfers are still using it. So I guess because I know there's obviously some spec changes that have to happen if you're going to use an Armlock setup. So could you maybe kind of explain the Armlock setup and what makes it effective for golfers?
Yeah, so the Armlock and the broomstick, which I think we'll talk about as well, require a little different technique. So whereas the standard Cruiser, you can pick up and just grip down on the putter the way that to grip it at sort of the length of your typical putter, and set up basically the same way you set up to your conventional putter and start going right away. It's an easy transition. The Armlock, it requires a little more technique. So you run the shaft up your forearm. If you're a right-handed golfer, up your left forearm. You have to make sure that the end of the putter doesn't extend beyond your elbow. That's part of the anchoring rule. So if the end of the putter extends beyond your elbow, that's considered anchoring, and that's not conforming.
Right.
So it is important to get the length correct and appropriate. And then really it's designed to take your hands out of your swing. So by having that really locked into your lead forearm, now you're just making a stroke, trying to rock your shoulders and take even more of your hands out of the stroke.
Yeah, and then I know it depends on the golfer and exactly how they set up, but then also that loft probably goes up a little bit on the putter.
Yeah, definitely. So there's quite a bit more forward shaft lean. So we add loft such that when you put it in the address position, the loft comes back off with the forward shaft lean.
Yeah.
But as you would measure it, if you measured the loft with the shaft vertical, it would have quite a bit more loft than a traditional putter.
Yeah, and then let's go into that broomstick sort of method as well. So that's another kind of unique setup that does probably require obviously some practice and getting used to if you're gonna go into that setup for your bag. But what are the benefits that, you know, if golfers make that decision to sort of work on it and put it in the bag, what are they going to see out of that one?
Yeah, so again, that one does require a little bit of technique and kind of understanding. I think people tend to think that those types of putters are illegal now or non-conforming. They're not. Not the putter when the anchoring ban came in, there weren't no putters were deemed non-conforming. It was just the technique. So any putter that you would have had, you could have used if you adjusted your technique. So you've seen a lot of tour players continue to use broomsticks. Most players that used broomsticks before the anchoring ban have stuck with them and just adjusted their technique. So when you could anchor, players would anchor them on their sternum and kind of set that point and then really create a true pendulum stroke. Now you can't anchor the putter or your hand against your body. So sometimes players even set up with their hand against their body and then move it off. So some players move it off an inch or two, and you know, you've seen some chatter about, you know, even amongst tour players about whether or not someone is actually anchoring it or not. Other players bring it quite a bit away from their sternum, but regardless, what they're doing is trying to keep that point, the butt end of the putter, in the same position, and then really create a pendulum. So all of the motion is with the right hand, and you really want to keep that point of the putter fixed and really try to create a true pendulum style. And that's another, you know, it's another technique that we're seeing more. You know, it used to be kind of a, you know, the Champions Tour, Senior Tour players would tend to favor these alternate styles of putters, but we're seeing more and more, even on the PGA Tour now, you see a lot of, you know, really top players using broomsticks. Akshay Bhatia is one of our kind of young, really good young players, and he's using a broomstick. So again, like these other styles of putters, I think the sort of stigma is gone. They're becoming cool instead of kind of, you know, putters that you would use maybe if you were desperate. So I think you know, if you're struggling with your putting or looking to improve your putting, they're definitely worth a look. They're, you know, each one of them isn't for everyone. But if you're looking for something different than a conventional putter and looking for more consistency, I would try one or all of them to see which one might be a good fit for you.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question here. I know we're kind of getting a little bit close to our time here, but I wanted to, you know, kind of, you mentioned it a little bit, but like, there's not really a handicap range for these setups, right? It's more of, like you just mentioned, it's kind of just, if you're looking for an improvement in your putting and you're willing to try something a little bit, quote unquote, unconventional, these are the setups that, I mean, they're working for tour pros. They're working for players that might be mid-high handicaps. Right. I mean, they're working for everybody. So there's not really I guess a handicap range, so to speak, that these are catered for.
No, that's the one thing that's interesting about putters. You know, I've been here for a long time and worked on lots of categories, and in whether it's drivers or fairway woods or hybrids or irons, you kind of have, you know, we've got, for instance, our triple diamond line, which is mostly for better players, higher head speed. And then we've got our, you know, max draw line, which is for players that tend to, you know, fight a slice or are looking to hit more of a draw. And then in irons, we've got, you know, everything from muscle back irons all the way up to super game improvement irons. Putters aren't like that. So you wouldn't say, well, if you're a really good player, you should use a blade, and if you're a really bad player, you should use a mallet. If you look on tour, every putter that we make is available on tour, so and used on tour. So it's not quite the same. You know, Jailbird, if you were categorizing putters in the way that you might irons or fairway woods or hybrids or drivers, you would probably say that the Jailbird is a game improvement putter. But it's
Right.
also, won the U.S. Open last year, and
Right.
it's by some of the best players in the world. So that kind of classification doesn't really fit. I think with this line, like I said earlier, I think that the standard cruisers would be really easy for someone that wants to try something different to pick up and use, and it could work right away. Set up the way that you normally set up to a putter, make a similar stroke. The putter is overall heavier and longer and more stable, but you don't really have to learn a new technique.
Yeah.
With the Armlock and broomstick, it does require a technique that's different from conventional putters. So I think those are even more important. I'm with you on your earlier comments that everybody should get fit for their putter. They use it more than any other club in their bag. And I think it's the one that can have the biggest and most significant impact on their scoring and handicap. But particularly if you're looking to get into an Armlock or a broomstick, it's important to get fit for those or see someone that knows those styles of putters and how they should be used and fit, so that you make sure you get the right length, that you have some idea of the technique required to use those styles of putters.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like we've talked about, it's really, if you're maybe struggling with your putting. I know for me, even last year, I have sort of the data tracking type of applications on my phone, so I can do all the stats and stuff, right? And putting was, the worst part of my game, and so that's why I've got a Jailbird Cruiser coming to my bag in 2024. So we do have time. I have a question that was submitted via Twitter. This is from Carter. He's asking. He says, prior to the anchor ban, right? He says that he used a broomstick putter and he struggled with his speed on leg putts. Is there any issues with controlling the speed on leg putts with these new setups now?
It's interesting, that has always been kind of the knock on the broomstick style putters. People, or even belly putters, when people were using those or these other styles, kind of the conventional wisdom was always that on shorter putts, they're good, but once you get to longer putts, it's harder to control distance. Stephen Sweeney, who's an instructor out on the PGA Tour, he and Phil Kenyon who are probably the two, preeminent putting instructors in the world right now, and certainly on tour, happened to be on our Odyssey staff. And Stephen was in recently, and we were talking to him because he has a number of players that have gone to the broomstick style putter, and he has said actually the opposite. He said what he's seen, the biggest improvement is in their speed control and their lag putting. So, again, if you can learn the technique and you can keep the butt end of the putter in one position, and then just create the right pendulum stroke. A lot of it, because the putter is so long and heavy, it's about how you take the putter away, because on the downswing, it's got enough weight and momentum to kind of carry through. So it's really about sort of learning how far you need to take it back for a given distance. So it requires some practice. It requires a little technique, but I think, what Stephen has seen and told us is that he sees once people learn how to use it, it can be really, really effective for distance control and speed control.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't think about it that way, where it does seem like if, the putting stroke becomes less work for you and your hands, that it kind of is more of a natural flow. Again, it's about how far back you take the putter, and then the rest almost kind of takes care of itself in a way. So, I think that's kind of where we're going to wrap up here, Luke. We've got, obviously, it's a big day for Odyssey with the AI-One Cruiser Putters now available. Golfers, make sure you get fit for your putter, as we've talked about today. That's very important, whether you're going with a kind of traditional or conventional setup, or you go with one of these alternative methods here in the Cruiser lineup. Getting fit for your putter is huge. So schedule that fitting at Second Swing. Check out the Odyssey AI-One Cruiser Putters and find out which setup is right for you. So, Luke, thank you again for joining. This was awesome. I'm very excited for 2024 because I'll have a Jailbird AI-One Cruiser in my bag.
Yeah, good for you. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it.